Jagmeet Singh is desperate to be noticed, so desperate that he keeps using words like war and fight. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. With the Liberal Party undergoing tremendous shakeup and the Conservatives experiencing historic leads in the polls, Jagmeet Singh has come to the realization that he is inconsequential, that nobody is listening to what he has to say, and that nobody cares what his contributions are, and that really in Parliament he might have had some sway because he had cracked out a deal with his other far left extremist political partners in the Liberal Party. But now that that is outside of Parliament, he can't sit down at any of the tables. Nobody's inviting him to Mar-a-Lago. Nobody's asking him to sit in at the First Minister's conferences, and he's becoming more and more desperate to be noticed. So he did a speech, or I guess it's called a speech, at the Canadian Labour Congress Political Action Conference in Toronto the other day. Of course, it wasn't covered by very many. And with a name like that, I can only appreciate that it's probably just a collection of union heads who will then go back and try to convince their unions to vote NDP. And most of the inner city unions vote NDP because they just don't seem to care about their money. They're the ones that are being crippled the most by all of the middle class actions that the NDP and the Liberals are taking. But their leadership doesn't seem to want to admit that, which makes you wonder who's actually gaining. And again, that's a video for a different day, I suppose. In this one, I want to point out how Jagmeet is becoming more and more desperate. He's using words like war and he's using words like fight. Of course, he won't mention the Liberal Party at all. He keeps talking about Pierre Poilievre, and he talks about Donald Trump, and then he talks about Elon Musk, and then he circles back to Donald Trump. This allows him to detract from the fact that he is responsible, at least 50% responsible for the condition of Canada, by supporting the Liberal Party, by voting in all of their policies, by refusing to put the country's needs ahead of his own and call a no confidence vote in September or October or November or any of the dozen opportunities that he's had. Every time standing up and mocking the Conservatives for trying to bring forward a no confidence motion. Now desperate for everyone to think that he didn't do that before. He's had a change of heart. Please notice me, please love me. This is the message that's coming from the pulpit as he speaks. Now, I found a lot of what he's saying to be very immature. And I don't mean in the sense of childishness. I mean in the sense of a person who does not have any real world experience and has no idea how diplomacy works, has no idea how to talk to leader of the strongest country on earth, has absolutely no idea how the economy works, but he's just standing on the top of the stairs yelling at as loud as he can go anyway.
That bringing in tariffs that Trump has proposed, it'll hurt Canadians, but it'll also hurt Americans. These are a threat to hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada. This could also increase the cost of living at a time when we're already struggling. We need to make sure that Americans also feel the pain. This is a bad decision because it's bad for workers. Putting in these tariffs will hurt people, will hurt families. We cannot let workers bear the brunt of it. So I've committed that a new Democratic government would ensure that the workers impacted will be supported, that we will use every cent of the retaliatory tariffs to go back to those workers, to support those workers that are impacted in trade-sensitive areas.
Let's establish a couple of things. First, Jagmeet Singh is educated as a lawyer, and his support of the carbon tax indicates that he has no idea how the economy works. Second, Donald Trump made $1 billion working in the New York real estate market, which is quite easily one of the most cutthroat real estate markets on the face of the earth. If it is not number one, it's certainly in the top three. Where Jagmeet gets the idea that he can explain the economy to Donald Trump is a bit of a brazen overreach, in my opinion. Jagmeet Singh has demonstrated that he has a very elementary understanding of how the economy works, whereas Donald Trump has all of the advisors of the economic power that is the United States of America, not to mention his own comprehension. I hear Canadian politicians desperate to move the focus away from the carbon tax, to move the focus away from the housing crisis, to move the focus away from the inflation and the cost of food, and try somehow to put it on this new villain, Donald Trump. But desperate to be noticed, so he talks like somehow he knows more about the economy than Donald Trump. Imagine in your mind that you're Donald Trump, who's made $1 billion in the real estate market, and across the table from you, you have Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man. And somehow Jagmeet Singh figures that they didn't cover what could happen with retaliatory tariffs or with tariffs in any way. Come on, man.
I think that the fact that the Liberals are focused on themselves instead of focused on defending Canadian jobs is a weakness, or is a shortcoming. It is a problem, and I've called that out. Instead of focusing on defending Canadian jobs, they're more interested in defending their own jobs, and that is a problem.
You talk about gaslighting. You talk about being a hypocrite. Jagmeet Singh kept the Liberal Party in power and destroying Canada so that he could protect himself for his own selfish needs. I mean, he talks about how they might be protecting Canadian jobs, but he forgets that most of the country doesn't have any jobs. He forgets that his policies on the economy and the environment have reduced Canada to having one customer. We don't even have setups to give ourselves business. He forgets that he's the one that kept the Liberal Party in power over the last 2 years. He's the one that has voted against the no confidence motion 10, 12 times. He wants you to forget it, but I don't forget it. And now that you've heard it, you won't forget it either. Because what we just saw there was gaslighting and nothing else.
We're going to stand up to a bully by showing that this decision, if he goes ahead with it, will not just hurt Canadians, it'll also hurt Americans. We have to make sure that that pain is felt, and so we have to have a strong plan of tariffs, retaliatory tariffs. I've said in addition to that, we need to make it clear that we are going to shut off the flow of critical minerals. We are the only country that can supply critical minerals at this point. And we know that this is a particularly strong leverage point because one of the prominent figures in Trump's administration, Elon Musk, needs those critical minerals for the batteries for his car companies.
So do you support bringing in dollar for dollar retaliatory tariffs?
Yes, absolutely. I think I'm ready to fight back against Elon Musk, against Donald Trump.
You can see what I mean when I talk about immature and not having any understanding of the economy. In fact, he demonstrates a total lack of even listening to the last sentence that came out of his own mouth. First, when Donald Trump puts tariffs, it's going to be a big thing. It's a dramatic thing. It's all this drama that the far left and the corporate media is trying to stir up. However, if we put tariffs, why will it have any difference of an impact on the Canadian economy? It will not. And he wants to tell you that he's going to put tariffs on products coming in from the United States, which will, of course, that money will go directly to companies that are being impacted by it. So he wants to give corporate handouts under the guise of telling you that he's paying wages, but those companies will lay those people off because they don't have the work. We saw this happen during the support that the federal government gave people during COVID, where we are down, 130 million or something. It's a lot of money. Of course, Jagmeet Singh doesn't care about that because he wants to use buzzwords like bully. Now, I have no place in my life for a bully. And if I was to put the two of them beside one another, Donald Trump and Jagmeet Singh, who attacks the press, who attacks people just saying things that he doesn't like. Donald Trump waves and smiles, tries to talk to him. Jagmeet can be quite a bit of a bully. I've seen that in his personality. When he doesn't get his own way, he lashes out. It's just childish and lashing out and saying, I'm taking my ball and going home. If you don't do what I wanted you to do, I'm going to hold my breath and stomp my feet. Donald Trump's not being a bully by protecting the interests of his own country. He's being their leader. You might understand that, Jagmeet, if you had any strength in you at all, if you had any comprehension or any compass about what leadership actually looks like. Of course, all you have is bluster and yelling like a 6-year-old or a guy in grade 5 who thinks that they're going to talk tough while the principal and all of the teachers look on, knowing that nothing can happen. You want to throw your weight around against the economic powerhouse of the world, one of the wealthiest men in the world, with all of your years of economic experience. And your answer to that is to say, well, they need critical minerals, so we'll just stop selling them to the United States. And that way there, we won't make any money at all. I mean, he acts like these critical minerals come out of like a corner store or something. Like there isn't, $400,000 a month being invested in the mining of these things, like between pulling them out in the ore form and then getting it down and trucks and how many people. I mean, I don't know the number per month, but you can appreciate that it's not just a small investment. And he thinks, no, we'll just shut down the mining industry because Donald Trump made me mad. Come on. Has no idea how diplomacy works. On top of that, he wants to be made Prime Minister of Canada while he stands there calling other leaders of the world names. One of the reasons Donald Trump is so angry at Canada right now is because Trudeau and Freeland and all the rest of them have been calling him names. Where in your mind do you think that he wasn't going to get even for that? Wouldn't you? Of course you would. If you imagine that Donald Trump called Jagmeet Singh a name, he'd be he'd be running down there and yelling and screaming and pointing his fingers. Like he did with that guy asking him a question at Parliament Hill that time. However, there was a great example of diplomacy that was happening over the last couple of days that I want to show you, that I want to take a minute to give you the difference between the exact same question and the difference in the response.
I've been making sure that we put the Canadian interest front and center, talking about how we have a wonderful mutual trade relationship that's mostly tariff-free, and I hope that we can keep it that way. And I was pleased to see with the speech today that clearly the president likes tariffs. He thinks that they're a policy solution, but he's given Canada a reprieve. We'll see how long that lasts for. But I think it's a demonstration that the president recognizes that it's a complicated and delicate relationship between Canada because there's so much cross-border flow of goods, and we have a real opportunity to show how the Americans benefit from that trade relationship.
Come on. It's night and day. One day that woman's going to run for Prime Minister of Canada, I'm sure. I mean, it's night and day. It was the same question. What are you doing about the economic threats that Trump is giving? On the one hand, it's like, we're not going to sell them anything and we're going to show him. And on the other hand, it's like, well, let's just prove to him that it's a complicated relationship and that there's a lot of benefits for both. One is a politician who has no idea what he's doing, who stumbled backwards into the task and the job of being the leader of the third party of the small NDP influence. And the other is an individual who understands what diplomacy is actually like. She didn't say anything different. She just said it in a way that was more diplomatic. And I know that there's a lot of Canadians who spent their whole life not listening to politics at all and now are elbows deep in it. And appreciate that just because you see it on TV doesn't mean that just because most diplomats are politicians does not mean that it is the same thing. Diplomacy is not politics, though a politician could very well benefit from being diplomatic. There's not a single soul in the Liberal Party that has a comprehension of what diplomacy looks like. They're about as subtle as a jackhammer. Jagmeet Singh, the same thing, because they're not used to being told no. They've been getting their own way for the last 20 years, and now all of a sudden somebody stands up to them, and they don't even have a comprehension or a clue how to begin the conversation because they have no diplomatic skill. They have no diplomatic finesse. They have no real world experience. And the difference is night and day. So I thought that you should see that, because now we can, in contrast, look at how barbaric and ridiculous Jagmeet Singh especially is behaving. Before I wrap, I just wanted to show you a couple of other things that point to serious flaws with the way that Jagmeet Singh approaches not only the real world, but politics in general. He slams Elon Musk every chance he gets, and yet here we can see the front cover of his X account, where he has posted 18,400 tweets, or whatever they call them now under the X. In addition to that, he has 600,000 people that follow him on X. So why is he so hostile towards Elon Musk? The guy is providing him with a platform to reach 600,000 people, which shocks me in itself. However, there's no accounting for taste, and some people might be following him just because they want to see what kind of foolishness is coming out of his mouth. My point is that he slams them all the time. He acts like a big tough guy around that he's going to take on Elon Musk, and yet he is on his platform constantly. One other thing I would point to is the bio. He puts pronounced jug rhymes with hug meet, leader of Canada's new Democratic Party, and then in French, and then text me, which I would love to see the kind of text that phone number gets. Like that would be entertainment in itself. Either way, I think that it's a little bit arrogant for a guy to spell his name J-A-G and then expect me to pronounce it J-U-G. Why don't you just change the A to the G, or just accept the fact that the English language has rules in it? And that English language rule is that A has a specific sound. That sound is A or ah, and not in any way, shape, or form a oo or a ugh. So the arrogance of you to demand that the entire English language be rewritten because you want to pronounce your name in a way that's different from the way that it is spelt just staggers me. And I don't care. The rules of the language are global. That's why I say Jagmeet, because that's the phonetic description of your name. The fact that you need to tell people that it's actually ugh rather than just change it is a bit strange in my mind, and also indicates that most people pronounce it the way that it's written. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. I'll talk to you next time.